A perfect stone wall has no space for even a blade of grass. This impossible precision connects ancient wonders across the globe, from the pyramids to mountain fortresses, and it points to a single stunning possibility. Our ancestors may have possessed a lost technology to soften solid rock. By the end of this, you will understand the compelling evidence for a forgotten science that could rewrite chapters of human history. How did cultures separated by oceans achieve the same miraculous masonry? What secret recipe turned granite as pliable as clay? What does it mean when the greatest monuments of the past are also our deepest mysteries? How much of human achievement is simply waiting to be remembered? That signature is carved into the very stones of the earth. It appears in the desert winds of Egypt, yes, but also in the thin air of the Peruvian highlands. It is found on a remote Pacific island and within the foundations of ancient Mediterranean temples. This is not a style like Gothic arches or Baroque curves. This is something deeper, a fingerprint of method. It is the seamless fit. A block of granite, basalt, or andesite weighing many tons is shaped with such geometric complexity and placed with such hairline precision that the joint between it and its neighbor virtually disappears. No mortar fills the gap because no gap was left to fill. The stone seems to have been convinced to embrace its neighbor, to achieve this with the hardest rock on the planet, using tools we traditionally credit to these cultures. Copper chisels, stone hammers, abrasive sand, is akin to trying to carve a perfect sphere out of diamond with a butter knife. The physics strain belief. This is why the phenomenon demands a second look. It is a global echo, a repeated answer to a question we have forgotten how to ask. When separate cultures with no possible contact arrive at the same staggeringly complex solution, it points less to coincidence and more to a fundamental truth about the material itself. Perhaps they all discovered that stone, under the right conditions, was not the immutable obstacle we think it is. Perhaps they learned to speak its language. The written record offers our first tangible whispers of this forgotten craft. Across continents and centuries, chroniclers and scribes have left puzzling accounts that refuse to be fully explained as mere legend. In the 16th century, the Spanish chronicler Garcilaso de la Vega recorded an Inca tradition passed down to him. He wrote that the builders did not cut the enormous stones of Sacsayhuamán, that immense fortress overlooking Cusco. Instead, they were said to have used the juice of a certain plant, a mysterious herb, to soften the rock, allowing it to be shaped and fitted. This was not presented as a magical story, but as a practical explanation for the impossible masonry he himself could see. A continent away and centuries earlier, medieval alchemists in their secretive manuscripts wrote of arcane liquors and potent potions with the power to dissolve stone. To the modern eye, these texts seem like cryptic allegory, the language of mystical transformation. But what if they were also something else? What if they were the veiled instructions for a very real, very physical technology? The persistence of these accounts is what gives them weight. They emerge from cultures with no possible contact, yet they describe a similar principle, a substance that alters the very nature of stone. This suggests a body of knowledge that existed outside of formal science, a practical chemistry guarded by master builders and passed through initiation or oral tradition, never written plainly in a textbook. These fragments are not proof, but they are a compelling invitation. They ask us to reconsider what we label as myth and to wonder if the true secret of the ancients was not superhuman strength, but a profound understanding of the natural world that has since slipped from our hands. The romantic idea of a magical plant juice softening stone is not just a fanciful tale. It is a hypothesis grounded in a very real, observable phenomenon, the chemical conversation between organic compounds and inorganic rock. That Inca story of a special herb points toward a lost science of applied botany. Across the regions where these impossible walls were built, the local flora holds surprising secrets. Plants like Jatropha curcas, a shrub common in the Americas, produce a sap rich in corrosive compounds. Certain ferns exude acids that can slowly break down mineral surfaces. If you have ever seen lichen slowly etching its pattern into a gravestone, you have witnessed nature's own version of this process, a quiet, persistent chemistry at work. The theory suggests ancient builders did not invent this chemistry from nothing. They observed it. They saw how certain plant juices could stain stone, could pit it, could change its texture. Through generations of experimentation, they could have refined these observations into a controlled technology. Imagine a thick paste, a poultice made from crushed leaves, stems, and saps, carefully mixed to a specific consistency. This paste would be slathered onto the surface of a granite block, not to melt it like ice, but to initiate a chemical reaction at the molecular level. The acids in the paste would begin to attack the bonds between the mineral crystals in the stone, particularly in rocks high in silica or calcium. The result would not be a liquid, but a softened, clay-like layer on the surface, perhaps only a few centimeters deep, that could be worked, scraped, and molded. After shaping, the reaction would stop, and the stone would re-harden, locking the new form in place with the original strength of the rock beneath. This transforms our understanding completely. The builder is no longer just a laborer with a hammer. He becomes an ancient chemist and a geologist, his workshop the forest and the quarry. His tools are not only chisels but also mortars and pestles for preparing compounds, and brushes made of fiber for their precise application. This was a technology in harmony with the environment, using the land's own ingredients to shape the land itself. It suggests a knowledge so deep it was woven into the ecosystem, a secret that grew from the ground up. Yet, if this knowledge was once so widespread, why did it vanish from the historical record, leaving behind only cryptic hints and those perfectly fitted stones as its last testament? But chemistry is only one side of this ancient conversation with stone. There exists another, even more profound possibility, one that moves from the tangible realm of plants and pastes into the invisible energy of vibration. Across the world, from the Tibetan plateau to the deserts of the Middle East, oral traditions and ancient texts speak of a power hidden within sound itself. Stories tell of monks using deep, resonant chants to move massive blocks, or of priests employing sacred instruments to make stone light as a feather. For a long time, these accounts were dismissed as pure mythology, symbolic tales with no basis in physical reality. Yet modern physics offers a startling parallel, a phenomenon known as acoustic resonance. Every object in the universe, from a wine glass to a mountain, has a natural resonant frequency, a specific pitch at which it vibrates most powerfully. You have likely seen a demonstration of this, where a singer holds a single, pure note and a glass across the room shatters. The sound waves transfer energy into the glass, matching its natural frequency, until the structure can no longer hold itself together. Now consider the reverse of that destructive potential. What if, instead of breaking the stone, you could use that same principle of resonant frequency to temporarily alter its state? The theory suggests that by finding the precise sonic signature of a specific granite block and bombarding it with that frequency, perhaps through massive drums, tuned metal plates, or the coordinated voices of hundreds of people, the intense vibration could cause the rock's internal crystalline bonds to slacken. The stone would not melt, but for a brief window it could enter a state of plasticity, becoming malleable enough to be shaped, molded, and fitted with astonishing precision. When the sound ceased, the stone would settle, its bonds reforming perfectly in its new configuration. This transforms our understanding of these ancient sites from mere construction zones into something akin to sacred theaters of applied physics. The workforce becomes a choir, the foreman a conductor. The act of building is no longer just labor, but a ritual of harmony, aligning human intention with the hidden song of the Earth's materials. It suggests a civilization that perceived the world not as a collection of dead objects, but as a dynamic field of energies waiting to be understood and engaged. This idea bridges the gap between what we see as technology and what they may have seen as spiritual practice, a unified knowledge where science and ceremony were inseparable. If true, the greatest monuments are not silent tombs but frozen symphonies, their true scale measured not just in tons of rock, but in the forgotten vibrations that once moved them. But what if we have been asking the wrong question entirely? What if the ancient builders were not struggling to move and shape impossibly heavy stones, but were instead creating the stones themselves? This leads us to a third, and perhaps most revolutionary hypothesis that turns the entire mystery on its head. It is the geopolymer concept, the idea that these perfect blocks were never quarried and softened, but were cast in place like the world's most sophisticated ancient concrete. This theory was pioneered by materials scientist Joseph Davidovits, who looked at the Great Pyramid not as a pile of cut rock, but as a monumental chemistry project. His analysis suggests the massive limestone blocks are not natural stone at all. Instead, they could be a form of reconstituted limestone, an artificial stone created by the builders themselves. The proposed recipe is deceptively simple. You take disaggregated natural limestone, essentially crushing it into a powder. You mix it with a specific alkaline binder, something derived from natron or plant ash, and add water. This creates a thick, cement-like slurry. This slurry would then be transported not in back-breaking sledges hauling 20-ton blocks, but in baskets or buckets, a task requiring coordination but not superhuman strength. Workers would pour this mixture into wooden molds built right on the growing pyramid face. Within hours or days, a chemical reaction called geopolymerization would occur, fusing the mixture into a solid block that is chemically identical to natural limestone. This single idea elegantly solves multiple puzzles. It explains the perfect puzzle piece fits between blocks because a poured material can conform exactly to its neighbor. It accounts for the mysterious lack of tool marks on many surfaces, as a cast block would harden with a smooth finish. It even offers an answer to how such precision was achieved at such a scale, shifting the challenge from brute force engineering to advanced material science and logistics. The lost technology, then, is not a magical plant or a forgotten sonic device, but a sophisticated recipe, a master builder's formula for artificial stone. This transforms our image of the pyramid site from a noisy, chaotic quarry yard into something more like a vast, open-air chemical plant, with teams mixing, pouring, and monitoring the setting of each course. It implies a level of practical chemistry that was so advanced, so embedded in the culture's knowledge, that its disappearance during later periods of conflict and cultural change feels less like a mystery and more like a profound loss. The stones themselves become the ultimate testament, not to what was carved, but to what was once known how to create. Puma Punku is where the mystery becomes undeniable. Nestled in the high plains of Bolivia, this sprawling complex of shattered stone is not a grand, intact pyramid. Instead, it is a field of ruins, a technological graveyard. Yet, scattered across this windswept plateau are stone blocks that defy every conventional story of ancient construction. They are made of andesite, a volcanic rock as hard as granite, a material that would quickly shatter the copper and stone tools we associate with its supposed builders. And yet, these blocks are not crude. They are masterpieces of precision engineering. You will find massive slabs, each weighing many tons, cut with perfect, razor-sharp 90-degree angles, their surfaces as flat as a modern factory floor. You will find H-shaped blocks with intricate, interlocking channels carved into their sides, channels so uniform and smooth they look as if they were milled by a computer-controlled router. Most baffling of all are the drilled holes, perfect cylindrical bores that run straight through the stone, their interiors as smooth and precise as if made by a diamond-tipped drill bit. This is not the work of artisans patiently pecking away with a hammer stone. This is the work of a culture that commanded stone, that treated it not as an obstacle to be conquered by brute force, but as a material to be shaped with absolute authority. The standard archaeological explanation that these forms were achieved by endless pounding with dolerite hammers feels profoundly inadequate here. To create such clean, sharp geometry, such flawless internal corners and smooth planar surfaces with only percussive methods is like trying to carve a perfect sphere out of glass by hitting it with another rock. You might eventually get something round, but you would never achieve that mirror finish. Puma Punku presents a forensic puzzle. The evidence left at the scene, the stone itself, tells a story of a technology that was both highly advanced and shockingly efficient. The builders did not waste material. Their cuts were precise, their designs modular and interlocking, suggesting a systematic, almost industrialized approach. And then this knowledge simply vanishes. The site itself lies in ruins, not from conquest, but from what appears to be a cataclysmic event, a scattering of these technological marvels like toys thrown by a giant. This leaves us with a haunting question. What are we truly looking at? Is Puma Punku the remnants of a sophisticated culture that mastered geopolymer casting, creating these forms in molds with a stone-like slurry? Or does it testify to the use of a softening agent, a chemical or sonic key that unlocked the stone's plasticity, allowing it to be worked with a precision we struggle to explain even today? The site offers no written records, no toolkits left behind. Its only testimony is the silent, stubborn perfection of its stones, a physical argument against the simplicity of our historical timeline. It stands as a stark, unanswered challenge, a whisper from the past that the story of human innovation may have chapters we have yet to read. Egypt presents the ultimate test case for this mystery. Here, the official story is etched in every textbook, a tale of copper chisels, abrasive sand, and limitless human labor. It is a narrative of immense effort, and it is one we have accepted for generations. Yet, when you stand before certain artifacts, the story begins to fray at the edges. Consider the granite boxes within the Serapeum of Saqqara, a subterranean gallery built to hold the sacred Apis bulls. These are not rough-hewn sarcophagi. They are precision artifacts of breathtaking complexity. Each box is carved from a single, massive block of rose granite, one of the hardest stones on the planet. Their exterior surfaces are polished to a mirror finish, so flawless they could reflect a face. But the real enigma lies inside. The interior corners, where three flat planes meet, are not rounded or chipped. They are perfectly sharp, forming crisp, clean geometric intersections. Achieving this with a copper chisel and sand is functionally impossible. Copper is softer than granite. Using it to chip at granite is like using a stick of butter to carve a brick. The tool would simply deform and blunt long before it made meaningful progress. Even with sand as an abrasive, the process would be agonizingly slow and would almost certainly leave rounded, uneven internal corners, not the machined perfection we observe. Furthermore, if this was the standard method, the archaeological record should be littered with the evidence, mountains of worn-out copper chisels and vast mounds of grinding slag. That evidence on the scale required to create the countless granite monuments of Egypt is conspicuously absent. The tools we have found seem mismatched to the task, like finding a child's wooden mallet at the site of a steel foundry. Some researchers looking closely at the stone itself have found more puzzling clues. On the sides of uncarved blocks and within unfinished drill holes, there are faint but discernible marks. They are the parallel striations of saw cuts and the circular grooves left by tube drills. But these marks are too regular, too efficient. They suggest a cutting process of remarkable speed and power, not the slow, grinding wear of a hand-powered sand saw. This has led to a compelling alternative idea. Perhaps the ancient artisans used a special slurry, a paste that did more than just grind. What if this mixture, applied to the cutting surface of a copper or even a wooden tool, contained a chemical agent that temporarily altered the surface hardness of the granite? In this state, the stone could be worked more easily, the tool gliding through a temporarily softened layer. Once the work was done and the agent washed away or neutralized, the granite would return to its full, immutable hardness, preserving every perfect cut and polish. This would explain the impossible precision, the lack of tool wear evidence, and the eerie efficiency hinted at by those saw marks. The Egyptian enigma, therefore, is not a lack of evidence but a disconnect. It is the gap between the simple toolkit we have catalogued and the transcendent quality of the work that has survived the ages. It asks us a simple, profound question. Did we find the common tools for everyday work, while the master builder's true technology, their secret for conversing with stone, was so precious, so guarded, that it was never left in a tomb or lost in a workshop? Perhaps their greatest secret was not in the metal of their chisels, but in the chemistry of their paste, a formula that turned impossible stone into a cooperative partner, and then vanished without a written trace. The stones of Sacsayhuamán are not merely placed, they are woven. Perched on the mountain ridge above the ancient Inca capital, this fortress presents a spectacle of megalithic mastery that humbles the modern eye. Enormous blocks of limestone, some weighing over 100 tons, are locked together in a dizzying, irregular mosaic. Their faces are rounded, their edges complex, each one a unique piece in a three-dimensional stone puzzle of staggering scale. The official explanation is one of immense patience and skill, the rope and log method for transport, and countless stone hammers for shaping. Yet, when you stand before these walls, a quiet question persists. How do you achieve such a perfect, seamless fit between two irregular, multi-ton polygons using only percussion? You would have to chip and test, over and over, a process of endless trial and error with zero margin for mistake. One misplaced strike could shatter a corner and ruin a block that took months to quarry and transport. The logistical and physical challenge is almost incomprehensible. This is where the softening theory moves from abstract idea to tangible, practical solution. Imagine for a moment a different process. The massive stone is brought roughly into shape. Then its contact surfaces are treated with a special compound, perhaps the legendary plant juice from the old stories. The stone does not melt, but its outermost layer becomes pliable like stiff clay. Now the builders do not need to carve it to a perfect match. They can lower it into place and, using levers and perhaps even the weight of the stone itself, press it firmly against its already set neighbors. The softened surface molds itself, conforming exactly to the unique contours of the adjoining blocks. It fills every microscopic irregularity. When the chemical agent dissipates or is washed away, the stone rehardens, now permanently and perfectly keyed to its place in the wall. This is not magic, it is intelligent material science. It transforms an impossible task of precision, carving into a manageable one of positioning and pressure. The result is a joint so tight that, as the local saying goes, not even a blade of grass can pass through. This method also provides a profound explanation for the site's legendary resilience. Earthquakes have shattered Spanish colonial churches built atop these foundations, but the Inca walls themselves simply sway and settle, the interlocking, molded joints allowing them to move as a single, flexible unit. The structure behaves less like a stacked pile of rocks and more like a single, living entity carved from the mountain itself. The legends of a plant that made stones soft like butter are no longer just folklore when viewed through this lens. they are the cultural memory of a real and functional technology. Sacsayhuamán, therefore, stands as more than a fortress. It is a preserved experiment, a physical demonstration of a lost principle. It shows us that the greatest strength does not always come from rigid force, but sometimes from a moment of calculated softness, a temporary yielding that creates a bond unbreakable by time or tremor. The legends are compelling, but science demands proof. What happens when we try to recreate this forgotten art with our own modern tools? Throughout the 20th century, a handful of determined researchers took the ancient stories as a challenge. Figures like John B. McGowan and later Maurice Cotterill moved from speculation into the laboratory, attempting to soften solid stone through chemical means. Their experiments were straightforward, applying common acids like vinegar or oxalic acid to samples of limestone and granite. The results were both revealing and humbling. Yes, the acids worked. Over days or weeks, they would visibly etch the stone's surface, creating a softened, pitted layer. You can see a similar, slow process on old marble statues exposed to acid rain. But here lies the critical gap. This slow, corrosive degradation is a world apart from the rapid, controlled plasticity described in the old tales, the kind that would allow a builder to mold a stone block like clay within a practical time frame. The modern experiments succeeded in demonstrating a basic chemical principle, but they failed to produce a viable construction technique. They highlighted the immense chasm between a laboratory curiosity and a method capable of shaping the multi-ton foundations of Sacsayhuamán or the granite boxes of Egypt. This gap points to a missing ingredient, a lost variable in the ancient formula. Perhaps the secret was not in a single plant juice, but in a precise mixture of several organic compounds, a catalyst that accelerated the reaction. Maybe it required the application of heat or specific pressure to activate the process, turning a slow etch into a rapid transformation. The failure of these modern attempts does not disprove the theory, instead, it deepens the mystery. It suggests the ancient knowledge was not a simple trick, but a sophisticated, refined technology, a recipe born from generations of meticulous observation and trial. Our science, for all its computational power and advanced instruments, has not yet reverse-engineered their solution. This is perhaps the most fascinating lesson of all. It reminds us that knowledge is not a linear path of constant accumulation. Civilizations can reach profound understandings of their natural world, solutions perfectly tailored to their environment and needs, and that entire branch of learning can later fall away, leaving behind only the magnificent, silent results of its application. The stones stand as a testament not to what we have gained, but to what we may have lost, a quiet challenge from the past that our brightest modern minds have yet to fully answer. Fire presents a paradox, a force of destruction that can also be a tool of creation. We know ancient cultures mastered it to transform clay into pottery and ore into metal, so why not stone? The technique of fire setting is one of humanity's oldest mining technologies. By building a hot fire against a rock face and then dousing it with cold water, the sudden thermal shock causes the outer layer to fracture and flake away. It is a brutal, effective method for quarrying. Yet, what if this principle was refined, its violence tempered into a precise instrument? Instead of using heat to shatter, could a master builder have used it to soften? Imagine a carefully controlled application of flame, not a roaring bonfire, but a directed torch or a superheated forge plate brought to a specific temperature. Applied to a granite surface, this intense heat could alter the stone's internal structure at a microscopic level. Certain minerals within the rock expand at different rates when heated, creating immense internal stress. At just the right moment, before the stone cracks from that stress, a chemical agent, perhaps a slurry or paste, is applied. The combination of thermal expansion and chemical reaction could temporarily disrupt the crystalline bonds, creating that crucial window of plasticity. This would not be a random process but a timed ritual of heat and chemistry. The evidence for such a technique would be subtle but potentially lasting. We might look for stones with unusual surface vitrification, a glass-like sheen caused by extreme heat, or for microscopic changes in the crystal alignment that differ from natural formation. Some researchers point to ancient metalworking as a clue. Cultures that could forge bronze or smelt iron were already experts in managing extreme temperatures, in understanding how heat transforms material states. It is a small conceptual leap from softening metal in a crucible to applying that same knowledge to stone. The forge that shaped a sword could have also been the key to shaping a cornerstone. This idea moves the lost technology from the realm of botany and sound into the familiar, smoky world of the workshop. It suggests the secret was not a single magical substance, but a sophisticated interplay of elemental forces, fire, water, and earth, orchestrated by a craftsman who understood their intimate conversation. The search for proof continues in the stones themselves, in the faint discolorations or the unusual texture on a cut surface that might just be the ghost of an ancient flame, a signature of heat applied not to destroy but to persuade. The secret to softening stone may have been guarded not by masons but by alchemists. To grasp this, we must step into their hidden world, a place where the line between mystical pursuit and practical experiment was beautifully blurred. These early proto-chemists were not simply chasing gold. They were on a quest to understand the fundamental principles of transformation in the natural world. Their greatest desire was to unlock the hidden potential within matter itself. In this grand intellectual framework, the ability to alter the very essence of a rock, to command it to soften and then reharden at will, would have been seen as a monumental victory. It was proof that the secrets of the material universe could be understood and mastered. Their surviving manuscripts are filled with cryptic symbols, allegorical dragons representing corrosive acids, and intricate processes described as dissolutions and coagulations. For centuries, we dismissed this as mere mystical jargon, but what if we have been reading it wrong? What if these strange texts were not books of magic, but coded laboratory notebooks? The language of allegory was a necessity, a way to protect valuable trade secrets from rivals or to communicate profound ideas in an age before standardized chemical notation. When an alchemist wrote of a powerful water that could dissolve the king of metals, they were describing a very real substance, aqua regia, a mixture of acids that can indeed dissolve gold. This was not fantasy, it was advanced, guarded chemistry. So, if they possessed an aqua regia for gold, is it so difficult to believe they might have sought, or even discovered, an aqua lapidis, a water for stone? A specific, potent formulation that could temporarily disarm the bonds within granite or limestone. This shifts our entire perspective. The lost stone working technique was likely not an isolated trick stumbled upon by a single culture. It was almost certainly part of a much broader, sophisticated, and secretive body of material knowledge. This knowledge was passed down through closed guilds, from master to apprentice, in workshops and royal courts far from public view. Its recipes were never published for the world to see. They were whispered, demonstrated, and protected. This is why it vanished so completely. When wars redrew maps, when empires fell and libraries burned, when the guilds themselves dissolved, this oral and experimental tradition evaporated like one of the alchemist's own volatile spirits. The knowledge was not necessarily destroyed, it was simply orphaned, its context lost, leaving behind only the magnificent, silent results of its application and those tantalizing, cryptic texts that we are still learning how to decipher. The stones are the alchemist's ultimate testament, a permanent transmutation they left for us to find. A perfect recipe is useless without a perfect kitchen. This brings us to the immense, often overlooked practical reality of applying any such technology on the scale of a pyramid or a fortress wall. let us say the ancients did possess a miraculous agent that could soften granite. The next question is brutally practical. How do you get that substance onto a 100-ton block? You cannot simply walk up with a bucket and a brush. The logistics alone suggest a hidden industry operating in the shadows of these great projects. First, the agent itself. Producing it in the quantities needed for a single course of the Great Pyramid would not be a kitchen experiment. It would require dedicated facilities, vast stores of raw botanical or mineral ingredients, and teams of specialists who knew the exact recipes, the right seasons for harvesting, and the precise methods of extraction and mixing. This was not a hobby, it was a sophisticated chemical operation. Then came application. To soften a block for shaping, the agent would need to be applied evenly across its entire surface, perhaps to a specific depth. This rules out a simple pour. It suggests specialized tools, large troughs or reservoirs built around the stone, or teams using saturated mats or thick pastes plastered onto the rock face with trowels made of wood or stone. The timing would be critical. How long did the softened state last? Was it minutes, hours, or days? A master builder would need to know this window with absolute certainty. The entire workforce, from the lever teams to the finishers, would have to move in a tightly choreographed sequence, a dance dictated by the chemistry of the stone itself. Most intriguing is the question of control. Once the block was shaped and fitted, did the stone simply reharden on its own as the agent dried or was neutralized? Or was there a second counter-agent, a final wash that locked the transformation in place? This possibility hints at an even deeper level of understanding, a two-step process of activation and deactivation that gave the builders complete command over the material state. All of this points to one undeniable conclusion. This was not a lone artisan's secret trick. It was a systematized industrial practice. There would have been guilds of stone softeners, chemists of the ancient world, whose knowledge was as vital as that of the architects. They were the keepers of the recipes, the masters of timing, the unsung heroes who made the impossible possible. When we view these sites through this lens, they transform. The quarry is not just a source of stone, it is the first stage in a chemical processing plant. The construction site is a live laboratory. The loss of such an integrated system, perhaps due to social upheaval, the collapse of a ruling dynasty, or the fragmentation of guild knowledge, would have been catastrophic. It would not merely slow down construction, it would halt an entire school of engineering in its tracks. The perfect masonry ceased not because people forgot an idea, but because an entire ecosystem of specialized knowledge, from the forager to the formulator to the applicator, vanished from the earth. The stones they left behind are not just monuments, they are the frozen machinery of a forgotten industry. The sheer elegance of the softening theory is undeniable, yet a truly honest investigation must also listen to the other side of the debate. Mainstream archaeology presents a powerful counter-narrative, one built not on forgotten secrets, but on the immense, patient power of human ingenuity. In this view, the miracles of ancient masonry are not the products of a lost technology, but of a found one, a toolkit of relentless effort and refined skill passed down through countless generations. The explanations are deceptively simple. Hard stones like dolerite or quartzite, fashioned into simple hammers, could be used to pound the surface of a granite block. With each blow, tiny grains of the granite itself are shattered away. It is a process of incremental reduction, not unlike carving a sculpture with a million tiny taps. Abrasives played a crucial role. By using wet sand, a slurry of quartz particles harder than many stones, and dragging a saw or drill back and forth, ancient workers could cut through even the toughest materials. It would be agonizingly slow, yes, but with enough time and a large enough workforce, it was entirely possible. The perfect fits we marvel at today might also be seen through a different lens. Over centuries, natural erosion, the settling of structures, and even the wear of wind and rain can smooth over ancient imperfections. What appears to us as a seamless joint might have originally had a tiny gap, later filled with fine dust or calcite deposits that hardened over time, creating that illusion of a perfect puzzle piece. As for the written accounts of plant juices and magical herbs, skeptics offer a compelling interpretation. These stories could be metaphorical, a later culture's poetic attempt to explain the inexplicable skill of their ancestors. Or they could be inventions, myths that grew up around the monuments long after they were built, assigning a supernatural cause to what was, in reality, profound human labor. This perspective asks us to consider a different kind of marvel. It asks us to envision not a single flash of genius that was lost, but a continuous, unbroken thread of learning and perseverance stretching over millennia. The achievement, in this light, is the sustained collective effort of a civilization, the ability to organize, motivate, and sustain a workforce for projects that spanned lifetimes. It is a testament to social organization, to the human capacity for delayed gratification on a civilizational scale. To dismiss this view is to potentially undervalue the raw, determined brilliance of our ancestors. Yet, even with this respectful acknowledgement, certain questions linger like stubborn shadows. Can patient pounding with stone hammers truly create the machined, internal 90-degree corners of the Serapeum boxes? Does the sand abrasive method adequately explain the speed and uniformity hinted at by saw marks on unquarried granite? The debate, therefore, is not between fact and fantasy, but between two different interpretations of human capability. One champions a slow, monumental perseverance. The other suggests a leap of applied science that was later forgotten. Engaging with both is not a weakness in the investigation, it is its very strength. It reminds us that the simplest explanation is often the correct one, but history has also shown us that the truth can sometimes be far more intricate and far more fascinating than we initially assumed. Stone is more than just a building material, it is the enduring memory of the earth itself. To truly grasp what might have been lost, we need to step beyond the workshop and into the temple, to see the world through the eyes of the builders. For many ancient cultures, the mountain was not a pile of dirt and rock. It was a living being, a deity, the spine of the world. The stone they quarried was its flesh, its bones, a sacred substance infused with spirit. In such a worldview, you do not simply dominate a rock with force. You must enter into a relationship with it. The act of construction was not a secular engineering project. It was a profound dialogue with the animate world. This changes everything about how we interpret the stories of softening plants or resonant chants. That special herb was not merely a chemical agent. It could have been a sacred offering, a gift to the spirit within the stone, a gesture of respect to persuade it to change its form. The rhythmic pounding of hammers or the deep, coordinated chanting of workers was not just about generating vibration. It was a form of prayer, a sonic invitation to the stone to participate in the shared endeavor. The entire process, from selecting the right block in the quarry to fitting it perfectly into the wall, could have been a carefully orchestrated ritual. Each step honored the stone's journey from a part of the living mountain to a part of the living community. In this light, the so-called lost technology reveals its true nature. It was never just a standalone trick, a secret recipe hidden in a scroll. It was a holistic practice, a seamless fusion of what we would now separate into science, religion, and art. The master builder was also a priest, an ecologist who understood the properties of plants, the behavior of sound, and the sacredness of place. His knowledge was not abstract. It was relational, born from a deep, sustained observation that the material world is responsive, that it listens. This perspective makes the disappearance of this knowledge even more profound. What vanished was not a single technique. It was an entire way of seeing, a worldview that engaged with reality as a web of living relationships. When later cultures encountered these perfect walls, they saw only the impossible product. The context, the conversation, the respectful partnership between human and stone that made it possible had already faded into silence. The stones remain not as cold artifacts, but as the last speakers of a forgotten language, one that spoke of cooperation with the world rather than conquest over it. These global echoes find their most bewildering expressions in isolated pockets of stone. Far from the famous pyramids and fortress walls, smaller, more intricate anomalies whisper of a mastery that seems to defy physics itself. In the town of Hampi, India, within the 16th century Vithala temple complex, a quiet marvel stands in the courtyard. It is a stone chariot, a famous monument, but look closer at its pillars. Hanging from them are delicate chains, each link perfectly carved, each loop hanging free. They are not assembled, they are not attached. They were sculpted from the same single block of granite as the pillar itself. The chains swing slightly in the breeze, a display of stone transformed into something impossibly fragile and mobile. To achieve this with hammer and chisel is not just difficult, it is an act of supreme, almost reckless confidence. One wrong strike, one moment of miscalculated force, and the entire chain would shatter, ruining the monolithic pillar. This is not monumental construction. It is the pinnacle of precision lapidary art, suggesting a relationship with stone where the material was somehow made cooperative, perhaps even forgiving, to allow for such a daring feat. Then there is the sheer, staggering scale of mass that mocks our understanding of ancient logistics. In the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon rests the platform of Baalbek, known to the Romans as Heliopolis. Here, 3 colossal blocks known as the Trilithon form a foundation course. Each one is estimated to weigh over 800 tons. That is the equivalent of 2 fully loaded jumbo jets. They were quarried nearly a mile away, lifted, transported, and placed with joints so tight that modern engineers struggle to explain the mechanics. The standard rope, log, and ramp model begins to buckle under such a weight. The friction alone would be immense, the risk of crushing the temporary roadbed overwhelming. These stones are outliers, date to points that fall far outside the conventional curve of archaeological explanation. They are not just bigger, they exist in a different category altogether, monuments to a capability that seems to belong to another age. What do these scattered, extraordinary examples tell us? They are more than curiosities. They are persistent, physical reminders that our historical models are likely incomplete. Each one is a piece of a larger, global puzzle. The stone chains of India speak of a culture that achieved breathtaking control over material on a miniature scale. The titanic blocks of Lebanon shout of a civilization that commanded inconceivable mass. They may not represent a single, unified global technology, but rather peaks of highly specialized, localized knowledge. Perhaps the secret of the plant juice was perfected in the Andes. Maybe the mastery of resonance or heat application reached its zenith in a particular Egyptian workshop or among the builders of Baalbek. This knowledge was likely not in every builder's toolkit. It was the guarded secret of elite guilds, applied to the most sacred or important projects, and then lost when that specific cultural or environmental context vanished. These anomalies force us to consider a humbling possibility. Human achievement is not a smooth, upward slope. It is a landscape of towering peaks and deep valleys. We may have only mapped the foothills, while the true summits of what certain ancient cultures could accomplish, through a deep, intimate, and now forgotten dialogue with their world, remain shrouded in the mist of time, waiting for us to understand the language their stones have been speaking all along. A powerful technology does not vanish in an instant. It fades like a language no one speaks, its words dissolving into silence one generation at a time. The disappearance of a stoneworking art is a profound case study in how civilizations can misplace their own genius. Consider the vulnerability of such a skill. It was almost certainly not common knowledge. This was the guarded secret of a master guild, a lineage of artisans who passed the recipes and rituals from teacher to chosen apprentice in a sacred chain of trust. The entire system depended on that unbroken line. Now, layer onto that fragility the turbulence of human history. Empires rise and fall with terrifying speed. The Great Library of Alexandria, a repository of ancient world knowledge, suffered repeated destruction, its scrolls turning to ash and taking untold secrets with them. When a conquering culture arrives, it often suppresses the practices of the old, labeling them pagan or heretical. A guild of stone softeners, seen as practitioners of an old magic, could have been disbanded, their workshops destroyed, their members scattered. Even without conquest, simple misfortune could erase the art. A master craftsman, the last keeper of a formula, might pass from illness without having found a worthy successor. The precise recipe, never written down in plain language, dies with him. The knowledge is not stolen, it is simply orphaned. There is also the slow, quiet pressure of changing times. Perhaps the technique relied on a specific plant that grew only in a now-vanished forest, or a mineral from a depleted quarry. As resources dwindled, the method became impractical. Newer, simpler construction techniques using smaller stones and mortar might have been adopted, seen as more efficient for a new era's projects. Why spend years training elite artisans in a complex chemical art when you can train 100 laborers to move and stack smaller blocks? The old way, once the pinnacle of achievement, becomes a relic, a legend told to explain the inexplicable walls left by the ancestors. The loss, therefore, is likely not a single cataclysm. It is 1,000 small breaks in the chain. A war here, a lost harvest there, a shift in religious belief, a master without an heir. Each event severs another thread in the tapestry until the pattern is forgotten, and all that remains is the fabric itself, the magnificent, silent stone, a testament to a skill we can no longer name. The echoes of lost mastery are not confined to stone alone. This same pattern of brilliant, practical knowledge that flickered and faded appears across the ancient world, in materials that have tantalized historians and scientists for generations. Take the legendary blades of Damascus steel. Forged in the medieval Middle East, these swords were said to possess an almost supernatural quality. They were strong enough to cleave through armor, yet flexible enough to bend without breaking, their surfaces marked by a distinctive, flowing pattern like water on silk. The secret of their creation, a specific process of forging and cooling using wood steel from India, was a closely guarded craft passed down through smithing families. When those guilds dissolved and the trade routes that supplied the special ore were disrupted, the precise technique vanished. For centuries, the ability to recreate that perfect blend of strength and beauty was lost, a ghost in the metallurgical record. Then there is the concrete of the Romans. While we often marvel at their arches and aqueducts, one of their most profound innovations lay in the very mortar that held them together. Roman maritime concrete, used to build harbors that have survived 2,000 years of pounding waves, possesses a mysterious property. It actually grows stronger in seawater. Modern Portland concrete, by contrast, corrodes and cracks when exposed to salt water. The Roman recipe was lost with the empire's decline, and it was only in recent decades that scientists, analyzing samples from ancient breakwaters, discovered the secret. The Romans mixed their mortar with volcanic ash and lime, and the seawater triggered a slow chemical reaction that formed incredibly durable minerals, essentially allowing the concrete to heal itself. This was not magic, it was empirical material science of the highest order, discovered through observation and experiment, and then forgotten. We see it again in the terrifying weapon known as Greek fire. Used by the Byzantine Empire to defend Constantinople, it was described as a liquid flame that could not be extinguished by water, even burning on the sea's surface. Its exact composition was a state secret so closely held that it died with the empire, and to this day, historians and chemists can only speculate on its formula, likely a volatile mixture of petroleum, quicklime, and other chemicals. What connects these disparate mysteries, the sword, the concrete, the fire, is a crucial insight. They represent not a global, systematic science as we understand it today, but isolated pockets of supreme practical expertise. This knowledge was often held by small guilds or craftsmen, transmitted orally from master to apprentice, and deeply tied to specific local materials or conditions. It was brilliant, but it was fragile. The loss of a single war, the collapse of a trade network, or the extinction of a craft guild could sever the chain of transmission forever. The proposed technology for softening stone fits perfectly within this pattern. It would not have been a universal principle taught in schools, but a specialized art, perhaps known only to the master builders of a particular dynasty or culture. Its recipe, whether a botanical mixture, a sonic practice, or a geopolymer formula, was part of that fragile chain. When the society that nurtured it changed or fell, the knowledge did not march forward into the future. It simply slipped through the cracks of history, leaving behind its magnificent, silent products and a legacy of unanswered questions. These parallel losses teach us a humbling lesson about the nature of human progress. It is not a straight, inevitable line upward. It is more like a flickering flame, sometimes burning bright with genius in one corner of the world, only to be snuffed out by the winds of change, waiting to be rediscovered, or perhaps never to be lit again in quite the same way. This possibility shatters the comforting simplicity of a straight line from past to present. Our standard historical model is one of steady accumulation, a gradual climb from simple tools to complex machines, where each generation builds directly upon the last. But what if that model is incomplete? What if the story of human knowledge is not a smooth upward slope, but a landscape of towering peaks and deep valleys? The existence of a lost stone working technology would be one such valley, a chasm of forgotten understanding. It suggests that civilizations can reach astonishing heights of practical science in specific areas, creating solutions perfectly adapted to their environment and worldview, and then, through war, social collapse, or the simple passage of time, that entire branch of knowledge can fall away. This is not about mythical lost continents or ancient astronauts. It is a far more human and profound realization. It is about the fragility of cultural memory, the way a master's secret can die with an apprentice, the way a library's burning can erase centuries of empirical discovery. We see this pattern echoed in other lost arts, like the Roman concrete that healed itself in seawater or the Damascus steel whose recipe vanished with its smiths. These were not global sciences but localized peaks of genius. A stone softening technique would represent another such peak, a summit of material science achieved by cultures that viewed stone not as an inert obstacle, but as a partner in a sacred dialogue. This forces a quiet revolution in how we look at the ancient world. Sites like Puma, Punku, or the Serapeum cease to be primitive marvels, puzzles of how they did it with so little. Instead, they become potential evidence of a different kind of it altogether. They stand as monuments not to what they lacked, but to what they possessed, a sophisticated, integrated knowledge system that wove together chemistry, acoustics, botany, and spirituality into a single, functional practice. Our challenge is to learn how to read that evidence without the bias of our own technological assumptions. We must be open to the idea that progress is not always linear, that brilliance can be specific and ephemeral, and that the greatest achievements of the past might be waiting for us not in the future, but in the subtle, overlooked details of a perfectly fitted stone. The most compelling proof would not be written in any text but etched into the stone itself. To settle the debate, we must turn to the quiet science of forensic archaeology, a discipline that treats ancient sites as silent crime scenes, searching for the microscopic fingerprints of a forgotten process. Today's researchers are not armed with chisels, but with instruments that see what the human eye cannot. Tools like the scanning electron microscope can magnify a stone's surface thousands of times, revealing a landscape of crystalline structures and potential chemical interactions. X-ray fluorescence can map the elemental composition of that surface, detecting the faintest traces of foreign substances that have bonded with the rock over centuries. The hunt is for a specific signature, a residue. This could be the ghost of an organic acid from a plant-based paste, an unusual mineral deposit left by a chemical reaction, or the telltale signs of extreme, controlled heat alteration that differs from natural fire damage. The search has yielded intriguing yet frustratingly ambiguous clues. In some studies, analyzers have detected the presence of organic compounds on ancient cut surfaces. But the story is never that simple. Was this residue from an ancient softening agent or from lichen that grew on the stone 1,000 years after it was placed? Could it be from a modern conservation treatment or simply from the hands of countless tourists? Isolating a signal from the immense noise of time is the central challenge. Each potential finding is a piece of a puzzle, but the picture remains incomplete. The quest for a definitive smoking gun continues, a needle in a global haystack of ancient masonry. It requires not only the most advanced technology but also a profound shift in perspective. Archaeologists must know what to look for and where to look. Perhaps the residue only survives in specific, protected environments inside a deep, unfinished drill hole that was never exposed to the elements, or on the pristine underside of a block that has never been cleaned. This forensic approach transforms every perfect wall from a monument into a potential archive, its stones holding onto a secret they have kept for millennia, waiting for the right question and the right tool to finally give up their answer. The stories we tell around the fire are more than entertainment. They are the echoes of a people's deepest memory. When the last practitioner of a craft is gone and the last scroll has crumbled, the knowledge does not always vanish completely. It often retreats into the realm of story, transforming from a technical manual into a legend. This is where our search must turn from the silent stone to the living word, to the folk traditions and oral histories passed down through countless generations. In cultures around the world, persistent tales speak of stones that were sung into place, of mountains reshaped by gods, or of magical brews that made rock soft as wax. To dismiss these as pure fantasy is to ignore a fundamental pattern of human memory. When a community witnesses something extraordinary, something that defies their everyday understanding, they do not forget it. They mythologize it, they wrap it in the language of the supernatural to explain its power, preserving the core event within a shell of symbolism. Consider the sheer consistency of one particular motif. From the high Andes of Peru to the forests of ancient Europe, from the islands of the Pacific to the deserts of the Middle East, the story of a special plant, a magical liquid, or a divine herb that softens stone appears again and again. These cultures had no contact with one another, no shared literary tradition. Yet, independently, their myth-making arrived at the same miraculous solution to the same impossible problem. This is not a random coincidence. It is a statistical clue, a fingerprint left on the collective subconscious of humanity. Ethnographers who study these stories are not looking for literal truth in every magical detail. They are searching for the consistent kernel, the shared experience that sparked the legend in the first place. The recurring narrative of a transformative liquid is not proof of a specific chemical recipe, but it is powerful evidence that something extraordinary was once done to stone, something so remarkable that it became the defining feature of how a culture remembered its own ancestors' achievements. These oral traditions are a non-material form of archaeology. They are the intangible artifacts of a lost reality, preserved not in clay or granite, but in the rhythm of a chant, the structure of a folk tale, and the solemn retelling by a village elder. They represent a different kind of data, one that records not how something was done, but how it was perceived and remembered. The master builder's precise formula for a geopolymer slurry or a plant-based paste may have died with his guild. But the awe it inspired, the sight of rock yielding like clay, did not die. That awe became a story about a gift from the gods. The practical, timed application of a sonic frequency might have been forgotten, but the memory of 100 voices raised in unison to move a mountain became a legend of singing stones. The folklore is the emotional and cultural residue of the technology. It is the shadow cast by a light that went out long ago, a shape we can still trace even if we cannot see the source. This perspective transforms every local legend from a quaint fairy tale into a potential historical document. When we hear an Inca story about the plant that softens stone, we are not just hearing a myth. We are listening to the cultural memory of the builders of Sacsayhuamán, filtered through centuries of retelling. When medieval alchemical texts speak in riddles of dissolving and coagulating stone, they are not merely engaging in fantasy. They are using the symbolic language of their time to point toward a physical transformation they believed was possible, perhaps because whispers of its past reality still lingered in the collective imagination. These stories are the last, fading whispers of a conversation our ancestors once had with the physical world, a conversation conducted not with force but with understanding. They remind us that before history was written in books, it was woven into the very fabric of cultural identity, waiting in the stories for someone to ask not if they are true, but what truth they are trying so desperately to preserve. The true nature of this mystery demands we abandon old categories. Solving this ancient riddle is not a task for any single expert working in isolation. It is a conversation that must happen across the boundaries of modern disciplines, a collaborative effort to translate a language written in stone, story, and soil. The archaeologist alone can map the site and date the layers, providing the crucial when and where. But to understand the how, we must call upon the materials scientist with her electron microscope, searching for the ghost of a chemical reaction on a cut surface that is thousands of years old. We need the chemist in his laboratory, attempting to reverse engineer potential formulas from the clues left in alchemical texts and the known properties of local flora. The historian sifts through fragmented chronicles, separating later myth from possible eyewitness account, while the ethnographer carefully records the oral traditions of descendant communities, listening for the persistent motifs that may hold a kernel of forgotten truth. No one field holds the master key. This is a lock with many tumblers, and each specialist brings a unique tool to turn them. This very approach, this interdisciplinary model, represents our own form of technological advancement in confronting the past. It is a methodology built on humility, acknowledging that the knowledge we seek was itself holistic, blending observation of nature with practical application and spiritual understanding. Today, this collaboration takes tangible form. Specialized conferences now bring together geologists and Egyptologists, acoustic physicists and historians of religion. Peer-reviewed papers co-authored by a chemist and an archaeologist propose and debate new hypotheses, subjecting ancient wonders to the rigorous yet open-minded scrutiny of 21st century science. The goal is not a dramatic eureka, a moment from a lone genius in a lab. It is the slower, more profound work of collective rediscovery. It is a painstaking process of cross-referencing data, where a residue analysis from a Peruvian wall might be compared to a medieval recipe from a European manuscript, or where a study of sonic resonance in granite could shed new light on a Tibetan chant tradition. This is how we build a bridge across the chasm of lost time, not with a single leap, but by laying one careful, interdisciplinary stone at a time. It offers our best hope of finally hearing the full story those silent stones have been waiting to tell, a story that can only be understood when we learn to listen with every tool and perspective at our disposal. A final, controversial thread weaves through this entire mystery, one that divides popular imagination from academic consensus. It is the theory of external influence, the idea that this profound knowledge of stone did not originate with the cultures we credit, but was given to them by a more advanced source. Proponents of this view point to the same evidence we have explored, the global echoes of impossible masonry, the sudden leaps in technical capability with few clear evolutionary steps in the archaeological record. They ask, how could cultures separated by oceans and millennia arrive at such similar, sophisticated solutions independently? For some, the most satisfying answer is that the knowledge came from elsewhere, perhaps from a sophisticated civilization now lost beneath the sea, or even from visitors not of this world. This idea resonates because it offers a single, elegant solution to a global puzzle, a master key for all the locked doors of history. It captures our sense of wonder and our frustration with incomplete answers. Yet, for all its narrative appeal, this theory faces immense and fundamental criticism from the vast majority of historians and archaeologists. The primary objection is evidential, a profound lack of the kind of concrete, verifiable proof that science demands. No artifacts from this hypothetical advanced source have ever been conclusively found. No unambiguous technological transfer has been documented in the geological or cultural layers of the Earth. More importantly, many scholars argue that this line of thinking carries a subtle but significant cost. By attributing the accomplishments of ancient cultures to an outside, often vaguely defined force, we risk diminishing their own genius, their creativity, and their profound connection to their environment. It can inadvertently frame indigenous innovation as something they could not have achieved on their own, which is a perspective modern research increasingly challenges. So why even discuss such a contested idea? Because engaging with it critically serves a vital purpose. It acts as a mirror, reflecting back to us the true depth of the mystery we are trying to solve. It highlights the places where our standard historical models feel strained, pushing us to ask better, more nuanced questions. The allure of an external source often arises when we underestimate the ingenuity, patience, and deep observational skills of our ancestors. Therefore, examining this theory does not have to lead us to aliens or Atlantis. Instead, it can lead us back to a more profound appreciation for human capability. It forces us to consider that the lost technology might not be a gift from the stars, but a testament to a different kind of intelligence, one born from thousands of years of intimate partnership with the natural world, a partnership whose full language we are still struggling to relearn. The controversy, in the end, is not a distraction from the search, but a part of it, reminding us that the greatest mysteries compel us to look everywhere for answers, even as we must ground our final understanding in the stones, the stories, and the science we can actually hold in our hands. A quest for knowledge walks a fine line between discovery and destruction. Our burning desire to finally answer how these stones were shaped runs headlong into a solemn responsibility, the duty to protect them. These are not laboratory specimens, they are sacred sites, cultural treasures, and the fragile heritage of entire peoples. The idea of taking a core sample from a perfect block at Puma, Punku, or applying an experimental chemical paste to a wall in Sacsayhuamán to test a theory is not just scientifically problematic, it is ethically unthinkable. Such destructive testing would vandalize the very monuments we seek to understand, trading a possible clue for a permanent scar. For this reason, modern archaeology has rightly placed preservation at the heart of its mission. The stones have survived earthquakes, wars, and centuries of weathering. They must also survive our curiosity. This creates a profound challenge for researchers. How do you investigate a mystery when you are forbidden from touching the evidence? the answer has sparked its own quiet revolution in technology. Today, the tools of the trade are marvels of non-invasive observation. High-resolution 3D laser scanners map every contour of a wall, creating digital twins so precise they can be analyzed for tool marks and wear patterns from the comfort of a computer screen. Ground-penetrating radar peers beneath the soil without moving a single stone. Portable X-ray fluorescence devices hover over a surface, reading its elemental composition without so much as a scratch. These methods represent a new kind of archaeology, one of respectful distance and immense digital patience. They allow us to gather terabytes of data while leaving the site exactly as we found it. This ethical framework transforms the search itself. It is no longer a race to prove a theory at any cost. It becomes a slow, careful conversation with the past, where every proposed test must first answer a simple question: will this harm what has endured for millennia? This respect is more than a rule, it is a guiding philosophy. It acknowledges that these sites hold multiple kinds of value. Their scientific secrets are entwined with their cultural meaning and their sheer, awe-inspiring presence. The lost knowledge we seek is not just a chemical formula or a sonic frequency. It is also the wisdom of the builders themselves, a wisdom that likely included a deep reverence for the materials they used. Our modern approach, prioritizing preservation, honors that legacy in the best way we know how. It ensures that the silent testimony of the stones remains intact, not just for our questions, but for the questions of generations yet to come, who may bring tools and perspectives we cannot yet imagine to finally hear the story. The quest now moves from ancient quarries to modern laboratories. Our greatest hope for unlocking this mystery lies not in rediscovering a single lost tool, but in deploying a new generation of silent, powerful observers. Artificial intelligence systems are being trained to sift through mountains of data, from high-resolution scans of stone joints to digitized archives of alchemical manuscripts. Their purpose is to find connections invisible to the human eye, spotting a recurring chemical signature in 1,000 different samples, or linking a symbolic phrase in a medieval text to a known geological process. This is a search for needles in planetary haystacks, and these new tools give us the chance to finally see the pattern in the hay. At the same time, the science of molecular analysis grows more sensitive by the year. Soon, we may be able to detect the faintest ghost of an organic compound, a single molecule that reveals the presence of a specific plant sap on a stone surface cut 3,000 years ago. The evidence we seek is likely there, etched into the stone at a scale we have only just begun to measure. One day, a researcher in a lab coat, armed with a hypothesis born from our eye pattern recognition and a recipe gleaned from a reinterpreted text, might combine precise ingredients and apply them to a sample of granite. And under controlled conditions, for the first time in perhaps a millennium, we could witness solid rock temporarily yield, becoming pliable, proving the principle was not only possible but repeatable. This is the thrilling future of the search. It is no longer just about speculation or defending a theory. It is a collaborative, global experiment in historical science, fueled by an insatiable curiosity and tools our ancestors could never have dreamed of. The enduring drive to solve this puzzle speaks to something fundamental in us. It is a deep desire to close the gap in our story, to reach across time and finally understand the conversation our predecessors were having with the very bones of the earth. Their silent, perfect stones are not the end of a mystery, but an ongoing invitation, one we are now finally equipped to answer. The labyrinth of history has no final door, only deeper corridors of wonder. Our journey through the possibility of a forgotten stone softening art, whether chemical, sonic, or cast, leads not to a single, triumphant answer, but to a quiet and profound realization. The truth may forever dance just beyond our grasp, a shadow on the wall of time. Yet, the megaliths themselves are the ultimate fact. they stand, immovable and eloquent, as monuments to something far greater than any single technique. They are testaments to human ingenuity in its rawest form, to a persistence that could envision projects spanning generations, and to the beautiful, enduring mystery that sits at the heart of our own story. These stones challenge us in a fundamental way. They ask us to remain curious, to look at the familiar sweep of history, and dare to question its settled narratives. They urge us to appreciate the stunning depth of practical knowledge a culture can develop through intimate partnership with its world, and to acknowledge the profound tragedy that such a nuanced understanding can slip through the fingers of time. The perfect joints and impossible angles may never fully surrender their secrets. The master builder's recipe might remain locked within the stone itself, a conversation ended millennia ago. But in the seeking, in the rigorous yet open-minded questioning, we perform our own act of reverence. We honor the shared human past, the drive to create, to build, and to leave a mark that whispers to the future. These silent sentinels from another age remind us that our history is not a simple tale of gradual ascent, but a rich tapestry woven with threads of brilliant discovery and heartbreaking loss. They invite us to look at the world with a little more wonder, to listen a little more closely, and to remember that the greatest chapters are often those written not in ink, but in stone. If this exploration of ancient mysteries resonated with you, I would love to hear your perspective. What theory feels most compelling to you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you are eager to continue unraveling history's greatest enigmas, subscribing is the best way to join the next